My ex-husband committed suicide. He left me without a single word, but bequeathed me a vast fortune. His assistant said, "You were the only salvation in the president's life." After your father passed away, the president blamed himself deeply. He thought his death might bring you some happiness. The president truly loved you. He was even willing to sacrifice his life for that love. It was at that moment I learned it was him who donated his kidney to me. He rescued my father's crisis by giving up half of his fortune. And when my brother was wrongly accused, he risked his life to find the evidence. I still remember, during the divorce, he knelt down, setting aside all his dignity, begging me not to leave. Yet I signed the divorce papers because others persuaded me to do so. When I opened my eyes again, I tore up the divorce agreement in front of me without hesitation. Killian is just an ordinary man after all. It's not surprising he has women around him. He's crying and begging you not to divorce him, but it's just because he's afraid you'll take his money. Men, putting on one face while hiding another, even after all pretenses are gone, he can still fake his devotion. Disgusting. Serafina, just sign it already. Stay away from men like Killian. You definitely deserve someone better. Lilith's voice echoed in my ears. My neck stiffened, and it took me a while to realize I had been reborn. Staring at the divorce agreement in front of me, my eyes turned red. My mind is filled with images of Killian after his death. In the bathtub, crimson blood gushing out continuously. On his pale face, there were still frozen tears. On his arm, my name was carved, accompanied by those words, "Until death do us part." His assistant said that Killian had been suffering from depression for many, many years. Yet, in our 3 years of marriage, I hadn't noticed a single sign of it. All I could see was his commanding presence in the business world and his graceful mobility in front of friends and family. He would research all brands of sanitary pads and choose the best for me. Then casually mention that his assistant bought them. He would go the extra mile, regardless of distance or time, to bring back the bowl of porridge I longed for. Then he'd casually say his assistant had ordered too much because they were greedy. I was high maintenance, yet he indulged my every whim. I was overly dramatic, and he accepted my tantrums without question. In the end, he kept all his love locked away in his heart. After his death, I once asked his assistant, why did Killian hide his heart? What did the assistant say? He replied, the CEO knew you didn't love him, so he didn't want to burden you further. Loving you was his own affair, and keeping you by his side was already the most selfish thing he'd ever done. Yet I feel that being held in the palm of his hand like a fool was the most excessive thing he ever did. After his death, his kindness toward me was magnified infinitely in my dreams, filling me with guilt, self-blame, making me regret why I couldn't have nurtured that marriage better. Serafina, what are you waiting for? Sign it already. Once you sign, you'll be free. The clamoring in my ears snapped me back to reality. I lifted my eyes to Lilith, who had been urging me to divorce while trying to seduce Killian at every turn. The moisture in my gaze slowly faded as I casually tore up the divorce papers in front of me. Lilith was startled, looking at me in disbelief. Serafina, what are you doing? I said coldly, I'm not leaving. Lilith paused. Why? Killian cheated on you. Are you really planning to forgive him? I nodded, yes, I forgive him. With that, I turned to leave the law firm. But Lilith grabbed my arm. If you don't divorce Killian, who's going to cover my family's $50 million deficit? I looked at her, my gaze icy. Your family's deficit is none of my concern. With exaggerated outrage, she exclaimed, didn't you say you'd give me all the assets you'd separate from Killian after the divorce? How can you go back on your word? Aren't you my best friend anymore? I chuckled lightly, then I suppose it wasn't. Such a toxic friend, spreading malicious rumors, poisoning others' marriages, and coveting their assets, would truly be better off non-existent. I walked out of the law firm, hailed a cab, and went straight to Killian's company. Just as I reached the entrance, 2 hushed whispers caught my ear. That man entangled with the president's wife is back again asking for investment funds. This is already the second time this month. The first time they asked for 10 million, and now they're shamelessly demanding 100 million. The 10 million vanished into thin air, and now the CEO is really going to give them this 100 million? Hard to say. Our CEO's wife might whisper who knows what into his ear. Who knows what the CEO is thinking? It's clearly a losing investment, but for his wife's sake, he's willing to take the hit. I pursed my lips and quickened my pace. As I passed by the two gossiping employees, they were visibly startled, lowering their heads in fear. Killian, this time I only want 100 million. Just 100 million, and I'll make sure Lilith convinces Serafina not to divorce you. Otherwise, all you'll get from Serafina is divorce papers. You love her so much, surely you won't begrudge a mere 100 million, will you? I stood outside the CEO's office. Through the glass, I could hear the conversation inside and see Adrian's arrogant, overbearing expression. Sitting across from Adrian, Killian kept a cold expression without showing any emotion, only his hands hidden under the table involuntarily clenched tightly, even turning red from the pressure. Seeing that Killian remained unresponsive, Adrian raised his voice. Back then, it was I who let Serafina go to you. If I wanted to take Serafina back, it would just take a single word. Killian, I'm giving you a chance, don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Killian's eyes grew sharp as he glared at Adrian, his jaw clenched tightly, having already reached the limit of his patience. Meanwhile, his concealed hand beneath the table had already drawn blood. I realized he had dug his nails so deep into his palm that he had broken skin. Yet Adrian's words continued relentlessly. Killian, I don't think you've seen those intimate photos of Serafina and me yet. And I doubt you'd want them to go public. A sly smile appeared on Adrian's face. Killian's eyes imperceptibly flickered with intensity. He stared at Adrian, his gaze sharp and murderous. Gritting my teeth, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Adrian looked at me in surprise as I walked in. Serafina, why are you here at this time? Shouldn't you be at the law firm with Lilith? He stopped mid-sentence, quickly swallowing the rest of his words. Then he cautiously glanced at Killian, looking as though he was afraid of giving himself away. Adrian had his sister, Lilith, constantly slander Killian in front of me, trying to drive a wedge between us and push me to divorce Killian. On the other hand, he repeatedly brought up my past with Killian, forcing Killian to comply with Adrian's outrageous demands for my sake. This deceitful pair of siblings inserted themselves between Killian and me, exploiting my flaws to corner Killian to his death. Yes. Killian was driven to his death. Lilith and Adrian are the killers. And I am the chief culprit. If only I had known Killian's love earlier, if only I had understood the sinister ambitions of Lilith and the siblings Adrian sooner. Killian wouldn't have taken his own life. My family and I wouldn't have met such a tragic end. When Killian saw me, he suppressed all his anger. Facing Adrian again, he was on the verge of agreeing to the 100 million investment almost without hesitation. I quickly walked over and grabbed his sleeve. Killian, I think we should reconsider Adrian's project proposal. Killian froze. Adrian, even more startled, spoke with evident displeasure. Serafina, don't interfere in business matters you don't understand. I glanced at Adrian and said coldly, I may not understand business, but Killian is spending Killian Group's money now. As Killian's wife, half of his money is mine. $1 billion is no small amount. Whether he can give it depends on whether I agree or not. Adrian didn't expect me to say this, his frown was deep enough to crush a mosquito. Killian remained motionless, his handsome face showing no emotion. I decisively hooked my arm through his and repeated firmly, right now, I don't agree to your investment. Do you hear me? Killian's lips twitched slightly before he nodded obediently and replied, I hear you. Adrian gritted his teeth. Serafina, have you forgotten what we agreed on earlier? Before Adrian could finish, I interrupted bluntly, forgotten. His face flushed instantly. I continued coldly, don't call me again in the future. Others might misunderstand the nature of our relationship. Those words Adrian just said in front of Killian were practically slinging mud at my reputation. Serafina, how did you suddenly become like this? Suddenly? I don't think so. Perhaps I should have become like this long ago. I'm a married woman, so please restrain yourself and stop saying things that overstep your place. Serafina. Killian, my ears are so noisy. I looked at Killian, as if seeking help. Killian gazed coldly at Adrian and said, "Get out." Adrian was thoroughly shocked, probably never having received such treatment from Killian before. I added fuel to the fire. He told you to get lost, so why aren't you leaving? Furious, he grabbed a cup of coffee in front of him and flung it at me. Killian reacted swiftly, shielding me behind him. But the coffee soaked through his white shirt. The stain on the shirt still emitted wisps of white vapor, clearly from a burn. Yet Killian showed no sign of pain, his face completely expressionless. Then, without hesitation, he summoned security and had Adrian thrown out. The spacious CEO's office was left with just 2 people. Standing before Killian, I began undoing the small, stubborn buttons of his shirt one by one. As the scalding coffee threatened to soak through his shirt, my eyes reddened with urgency. "Are you crying?" Killian's voice came from above me. I wiped the corners of my eyes, my throat tight. "I'm so useless, I can't even undo the buttons." "That coffee must have been scalding, how it must have hurt when it splashed on your skin." A large, slightly calloused hand suddenly covered the back of mine. A wave of warmth flowed from his palm. Then, he tore at the shirt violently, sending buttons flying in all directions. Some even bounced onto my face. I gasped in surprise. Toned abdominal and chest muscles stood erect before me. I lifted my gaze, directly meeting Killian's eyes, and under his cool stare, my cheeks involuntarily flushed with a hint of shyness. He said gently, "I've unbuttoned them all, don't be angry." I swallowed hard, my mind blank for a moment. With trembling hands, I took the burn ointment, squeezed some onto my fingers, and then carefully applied it to the already reddened and swollen skin of his lower abdomen. He simply watched in silence, saying nothing. I tried to remain composed as I tended to his wound but stumbled upon a long, trench-like scar, the location of his left kidney. My heart skipped a beat, and the emotions I had struggled to suppress surged up once again. In that instant, tears began to fall. Killian panicked, asking, "Is the scar too ugly? Did it scare you?" As he spoke, he moved to put his clothes back on. I shook my head and said, "No, the scar isn't ugly. Not at all. It's such a long scar. How much pain did you endure when they cut it? And just like that, it's a kidney. How could you give it to me so casually?" He paused. "You know? Since when?" "In my previous life, after he died." I wiped my nose and glared at him resentfully. "You're so good at being the nice guy, donating a kidney to me without saying a word, making me think it was Adrian who gave me this kidney." He pursed his lips slightly, his handsome face lowering a bit. "Adrian said you didn't like me, let alone would you want my kidney. I was afraid you wouldn't accept it, so." "You fool." I hugged him, burying my face in his chest, sobbing uncontrollably. "Can't you just tell me directly how you feel about me? How many misunderstandings between us have only happened because you wouldn't speak, and I wouldn't either, letting others take advantage? Since when do you listen to whatever Adrian says? Weren't you supposed to be the decisive, ruthless CEO? How is it that when it comes to matters of the heart, you act like a complete fool?" His hands gripped my shoulders, tightening gradually. He was holding back. I was just scared. Scared of what? I was afraid you wouldn't want me, afraid you'd hate me. When we got married, you had to compromise, and forcing you to stay by my side was too much. "Killian, kiss me." I looked at him, my tone carrying a hint of command. Perhaps it was because I knew too much about how deeply he loved me that I could be so bold with someone I used to fear in my past life. We've missed out on too much. In this lifetime, we can't let it continue like this. His eyes flickered with disbelief. Heaven knows, after 3 years of marriage, we've never even kissed. He froze in place. I took the initiative to touch his lips. By accident, I ended up pushing him down onto the sofa. Serafina, I don't want to hurt you. His voice was strained with restraint. Before I could grasp the meaning behind his words, I snuggled into his embrace and whispered, "Hold me tighter, as tight as you can." His strength was overwhelming. As his large hand pressed against my back, it felt as though he was trying to meld me into his very being. A sudden spring rain arrives. Falling on the leaves, it rustles softly. Landing in the flower stamens, it adorns them like fine attire. The flowers and grasses sway in the spring breeze, gently rocking, dancing with grace. A sweet fragrance fills the air. Restrained and suppressed, it all dissipates in an instant into tenderness. On the sofa, I lean into his embrace. His coat is draped over me, concealing the crucial scenery. Beneath me, my intimate garments are strewn about. He wipes the sweat from my forehead, his face filled with remorse. "I'm sorry, Serafina, I couldn't resist." My cheeks were burning, my mind still filled with the blush-inducing scene from earlier. Biting my lip lightly, I nestled closer into his embrace and grumbled, "Why you don't have to, exhausted all at once. There's always next time." Yet he remained uneasy. "I keep feeling like this is a dream. None of it seems real." Unreal, so he desperately wanted to cling to it. Devoted body and soul, willing to stake even his life in the act. "Is there still a meeting this afternoon? You should go freshen up first, don't let it interfere with your work." I gave Killian a little push. He reluctantly got out of bed, though the reluctance in his eyes made it seem like he might pounce back at any moment. "Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. Besides, in my current state, there's nowhere I could go anyway." He pursed his lips slightly before finally heading into the adjacent bathroom after a long pause. Hearing the sound of running water from the bathroom, I finally relaxed. This man was terrifying, especially after taking off his clothes. "President, I brought the clothes you requested, still selected according to my measurements. If Madam is unwilling to attend the evening banquet, you can always have me accompany you." A woman's voice came from the entrance. It stopped abruptly the moment she saw me. Yvette froze. "Madam, when did you arrive?" I leisurely put on Killian's shirt, my slender legs boldly exposed in front of Yvette. The clothes on the floor, the sound of running water in the bathroom, and the lingering scent in the air. If anyone else had seen this, I might have felt ashamed or embarrassed. But the person standing before me now was Yvette, the woman who had been constantly challenging my place, Killian's secretary. "I came to see my husband. Do I need to report to you?" "Of course not, I was just curious." "Indeed, you must be curious. I actually didn't listen to Lilith and divorce Killian, instead, I'm here secretly indulging with Killian." I gently pulled open my collar, letting Yvette see beneath it. Her eyes immediately reddened, and her head lowered in response. "I don't understand what you're saying, madam. I'm just here to deliver clothes. The CEO has a banquet tonight, and it's routine for me to prepare evening attire for you." I smirked coldly. "Clothes meant for me, yet they're in your size." In my past life, it was this very move that made me firmly believe Killian had cheated on me with Yvette. Yvette even hardened her tone and said, "Madam, I've always been the one by the president's side in the past." So what?" Yvette bit her lower lip, her eyes red as she looked at me. "I only appear when the president needs me. You should be magnanimous and understand him, and me." I threw the clothes on the ground, and Yvette's face turned a mix of red, white, and blue. "No, I don't want to understand a woman who spends all day flaunting herself in front of my husband in sheer black stockings and low-cut dresses." She froze. Instinctively, she reached to pull her collar up as if to hide something. "Madam, this is a misunderstanding." "Misunderstandings?" I raised my hand and slapped Yvette across the face. Her cheek immediately swelled red. But it did little to quell my anger. This was the woman who had repeatedly sent me photos and locations, making me doubt Killian's loyalty. I lifted my hand to strike again, but Yvette caught my wrist. "Madam, don't go too far." I scoffed, "Beating a shameless homewrecker, how is that going too far?" Yvette's grip loosened, and the force of my slap sent her tumbling to the ground. Just then, the sound of running water from the bathroom stopped. Killian stepped out, wearing nothing but a towel wrapped around his waist. His handsome, clean-cut features were half hidden by the tousled hair falling over his forehead, but the moment he spotted Yvette, a frown crossed his face as he quickly shrugged on the bathrobe nearby. Yvette began her performance. "President, I just came to deliver clothes, but Madame seems to have misunderstood." She covered her face, appearing fragile and delicate, looking extremely aggrieved. "Madam, the President is swamped with work and couldn't find time to prepare the evening gown, so he asked me to help you with it." How could you misunderstand the relationship between me and the President?" Her pitiful demeanor was extremely green tea. Killian's eyes flickered slightly as he walked to my side and asked what had happened. In the past, I would have been so infuriated by Yvette's few words that my brain would short-circuit, immediately taking it out on Killian, falling right into everyone's trap. There would have been no way for me to sit down and calmly talk with Killian. But now, I must speak up. What needs to be said must be said clearly. I won't give anyone the slightest chance to interfere. I pointed at Yvette. She claimed she prepared an evening gown for me for the banquet, but it was in her size. Almost instantly, Killian understood the implication of my words. Before Yvette could even respond, he coldly declared, "You're fired." Yvette's face was deathly pale, her eyes filled with disbelief. I was also somewhat surprised. This matter was resolved with surprising ease. "Wait, when your company fires an employee, is it really as simple as a single sentence, just like in TV dramas?" Yvette still wanted to fight for something, but Killian gave her no chance, simply instructing her to collect her salary from finance immediately. As we left Killian's office, I added fuel to the fire, deliberately wrapping my arms around his neck and cooing, "My back hurts. Carry me. And help me wash up later." The sound reached Yvette's ears. I saw her spine visibly stiffen. A sense of petty triumph surged in my heart. Until Yvette left, I was immersed in the joy of chasing away the other woman. Not once did I notice the burning gaze of the man beside me. With a sudden lightness, I was swept into Killian's arms horizontally, startling me. He was already carrying me toward the bathroom. "No, I can manage on my own." But he shook his head very seriously. "Your back hurts, let me do it." "My back doesn't hurt." "No, it does." In the end, we didn't make it to the banquet. Killian took me home instead, a suburban villa in the south of the city, our marital home, though the property was registered solely under my name. It was his wedding gift to me. When he forcefully came to my home demanding an arranged marriage, I couldn't refuse due to my family's crisis, never realizing just how much I would benefit from this union. He offered half his fortune to help my father's company through the crisis. He cleared my brother's name and protected him from corporate sabotage. And he gave me this luxurious house, granting me absolute freedom. For the longest time, I never allowed him inside. Today, when he arrived and carried me out of the car, he cautiously asked, "Can I really come in? This is your home, it's our home." I fawned over him like a little white rabbit. He pressed his lips together and stepped closer into the room, one slow step at a time. Tonight, I thought, neither of us would be getting any sleep. I wanted to tell him so many things. I wanted to tell him that if he wanted to be good to me, he should do it openly. If he wanted to love me, he should love me boldly and without reservation. Husband and wife are one, sharing both honor and disgrace. I would slowly learn to be a good wife, settling firmly into his heart and giving him a profound sense of security. But before we could even step through the front door, the warm atmosphere between me and Killian was shattered. Inside the window, two uninvited guests were sitting in our living room, eating fruit, drinking imported wine, and watching TV. Lilith and Adrian, the siblings, seemed to treat this place as their own home, acting entirely at ease. Trash was scattered all over the floor. The housekeeper was ordered around by them incessantly. "It seems one housekeeper isn't enough. Tomorrow, I'll arrange for 2 more to take care of you." Killian said this without a trace of displeasure in his eyes or brows. But I frowned. you clearly don't like those two siblings, why endure them? He looked at me, his gaze gentle, but they're your friends. You enjoy spending time with them, so I have to accept it. I felt a pang of sorrow. Sorrow over his selflessness. Would you agree to anything I asked, even if it meant dying? His eyes remained steady as he gave me a single word, yes. I understood the weight behind that instant reply. In my past life, I believed Adrian's words and blamed my father's death on Killian. He just wanted to please me, to make me smile by hosting such a grand birthday celebration. Not only was I ungrateful, I even told him in front of everyone, only when you die will I be happy. Then, he really went and died. Just to make me happy. With tears in my eyes, I said, Killian, I won't allow you to die, do you hear me? No matter what threats anyone makes to you, you're not allowed to die, not even if it's me. He seemed slightly stunned. His arms tightened around me, as if making a promise. All right, I won't die. As I looked through the window at Lilith and Adrian, the siblings who were utterly oblivious, the hatred in my heart surged once more. Put me down. I'll go in first, and you stand right here. Listen carefully to what these two usually say to me. He frowned slightly. I continued, I really don't understand matters in the business world. Whether to collaborate with Adrian or what you plan to do next, make a rational judgment. No matter what you decide, I trust you unconditionally. With that, I headed inside. It wasn't until we reached the door that Killian released his grip on my little finger. I entered the house. Lilith immediately pulled me to sit on the sofa. Adrian gave me a sidelong glance, clearly still upset about what had happened earlier in the day. Serafina, why don't you just divorce a scoundrel like Killian? It was his doing that caused your father's company crisis back then. How can you be so soft-hearted toward your enemy? I looked at Lilith and countered, but why would he harm my father's company, only to spend half his fortune to rescue my dad's business? Lilith, I just can't believe Killian is the person you're describing. Lilith was taken aback and quickly responded, maybe he finds it amusing. Who knows what goes through the mind of such a cold-blooded psychopath? Let's not even bring up your father's company. Killian and his secretary indulge in debauchery all day long, doesn't that bother you at all? If you don't love him, staying together is just torture. The most important thing is to get a divorce and take the money. That's what Lilith said. Adrian suddenly sneered, Serafina has probably already been ensnared by Killian and forgotten everything from the past. Lilith was reminded by Adrian and feigned a sob. Yes, your words and actions today have deeply hurt both me and my brother. We're the best of friends, and now that my family is in trouble, you say you won't help, how can your conscience bear it? Back then, despite the whole family's opposition, my brother insisted on donating his kidney to you. He risked everything to gather evidence when your brother was framed. You promised to repay our family for a lifetime, is this how you keep your word? In the past, Lilith and Adrian had me completely under their control with these two things. Now, I quietly watch their performance, just waiting for the moment when this act can no longer go on. I said calmly, you're both right. I should also repay my savior. Lilith and Adrian smirked. It seemed they felt their desired outcome was within reach. But I continued, and after divorcing Killian? A divorced woman like me, with no means to defend herself, might even have Killian withdraw his support for my father. What would happen to me then? What would become of my father's business? Lilith paused. Adrian took a deep breath and said earnestly, when that time comes, I will naturally marry you. I will do everything to assist your father, Serafina. You can't possibly have missed my feelings for you. I looked hopefully at Adrian. Brother Adrian, when my father's company was in trouble before, I begged you for help, but you said you couldn't make the decision. How come you could help my father right after I got divorced? Adrian's face stiffened. The tender words he spoke next came out with noticeably less fluency. That was the past. Back then, I didn't recognize my own feelings for you. Now I'm certain of my love. These 3 years you've been married to Killian, you have no idea how I suffered through nightmares every night. Listening to this, my stomach churned. I felt sick. But I held it in and continued responding to Adrian. Brother Adrian, since you're being so devoted, then I accept your proposal and will divorce Killian. Adrian and Lilith burst into laughter without restraint. I continued, Brother Adrian, I'll likely end up with nothing in this divorce. Before marrying Killian, we signed a prenuptial agreement. I won't get a dime of his money. I hope you won't mind that not only will I be penniless, but I'll also bring along the debts from my father's business. As I spoke, I pulled out a contract. You know my father, he cares deeply about his company. Right now, it's only barely staying afloat with Killian's help. If I get divorced, my father's company probably won't survive for long. If you're willing to sign this agreement and unconditionally inject 100 million into my father's business, he'd likely agree to let me marry you. How sincere my words were, how disgusted Adrian appeared. Looking at the agreement, his face turned pale. Lilith couldn't help but console from the side, Serafina, is this really necessary? Don't you trust my brother's character? I replied calmly, of course I trust Adrian's character. I'm just worried my father might not. The room fell into silence. With a faint smile, I added, by the way, with such a beautiful night, I have 2 bottles of my finest wine upstairs. I'll bring them down so we can celebrate my newfound freedom, and soon, my happiness in marrying Adrian. With that, I stood up and went upstairs. The 2 downstairs began discussing without any restraint. Bro, should we sign? If we sign this, we're finished. Then what do we do? If Serafina can't get Killian's divorce settlement, and Killian won't invest in us, are we really doomed? Don't worry, I still have a way. I could easily guess what they were discussing. In my previous life, after my divorce from Killian, I made it clear that I was innocent by not claiming any of his assets and had no money to help them. The siblings simply conspired to stage a kidnapping. After abducting me, they demanded 100 million from Killian. It was this 100 million that plunged Killian's company into crisis and put pressure on my father's business. With Adrian's group gaining momentum and putting pressure on Killian's conglomerate and my father's business, it wasn't long before my father passed away, exhausted by the collapse of his company. Although Killian managed to catch his breath for a moment, I blamed my father's death on him. After Killian's passing, his empire crumbled like a collapsing tower, its former glory gone, leaving tens of thousands without their livelihoods, an event that caused quite a stir. A man who could have been a business tycoon, yet he gave up a bright future, even his own name, all for a woman. It's not an exaggeration to say that Killian is love-struck. I gaze at the bottles of alcohol on the liquor cabinet. These were part of the betrothal gifts Killian sent to my family when we got married. During the wedding, we didn't get to drink them, but now, opening them, the aroma is even richer. I take a sip of the liquor, turn to leave, and wait for the siblings to attempt their kidnapping plot when a long arm suddenly wraps around me from behind. Startled, I hear Killian's deep voice whisper in my ear, I'm sorry, I didn't realize these 2 would keep speaking ill of me in front of you. He's always apologizing. But clearly he's not the one at fault. I was the one who listened to their instigation. No, it's my fault for not explaining things clearly to you, making you live in constant fear and anxiety. Those days when you misunderstood me as cheating must have been so painful for you. His voice bewitched my tears. I sniffled, I'm sad, but Killian, you who love me yet dare not speak it, I fear you must be suffering far more painfully than I. That's why, after I uttered those words, he lost all attachment to this world and went straight to death. He lowered his head and kissed the tear streaks on my face. Slowly, the kiss moved to the corner of my lips. It should have been light and tender, yet he suddenly grew fierce, biting the tip of my tongue. It hurt. Then I heard him whispering by my ear, Serafina, from now on I won't allow you to call anyone else brother. I paused, remembering how to address Adrian. I just wanted to let their guard down. I don't care, I just don't want to hear it. Why? It's so tempting, you have no idea. Just hearing you call him brother earlier made me want to burst in and strangle him. The video of Lilith and Adrian, the sibling duo, plotting to kidnap me was handed over to the police. Evidence of Adrian repeatedly using me to threaten Killian into investing was also submitted to the relevant financial crime center. Additionally, Killian uncovered proof that my father's business crisis was entirely due to Adrian leaking the project's floor price, directly throwing Adrian's conglomerate into the eye of the storm. As the helmsman of the conglomerate, Adrian was undoubtedly sent to prison. Given the enormous sums involved, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. When Lilith came begging to me, she wore a pitiful, innocent expression, persistently recounting our past affections. Yet, I presented her with a video showing Lilith deliberately removing her clothes in front of Killian, attempting to seduce him. How amusing that a man you described as worse than scum could still be worth all your efforts to seduce. Lilith turned pale, still shaking her head in denial. I cut her off. If you dared to act and own up, I'd still consider you a true fighter. But not only did you fail to secure your position, you also colluded with Killian's female secretary. Just how much suffering do you want to inflict on me? Lilith, seeing that explanations were futile, let her true colors show. Serafina, what makes you deserve Killian's love? You're only with Killian for his money. Serafina, Killian loving you is him being blind. You're not worthy of Killian at all. I'm not worthy of Killian. That statement isn't wrong. He's simply too outstanding, too good, too devoted. Even when nestled in his arms, breathing in his crisp scent, I'm always plagued by doubt. Why should I deserve Killian's unconditional favor that he gives without hesitation? He'll kneel on one knee to put my shoes on for me. He'll set aside his aloof demeanor to hand-feed me congee. Every word and action of his is considerate of me, meticulous to the point where no one could possibly find fault with him. Oh, right. There is one flaw about Killian. His stamina in certain areas is excessively impressive. It's honestly a bit overwhelming. I couldn't help but blush. Lilith stared at me for a long moment, her eyes filled with confusion. Why are you blushing? I'm scolding you. I cleared my throat softly. Ultimately, because I was in a good mood, I didn't really want to argue with Lilith further. What you want, I can't give. If you have the ability, go find Killian yourself. Lilith frowned. You're willing to share Killian with me? I remained silent. If he's willing, I have no objections. Lilith seemed to have received some sort of promise and immediately dashed into the Killian Group office building. Barely 10 minutes later, she was thrown out onto the street naked for all to see. Meanwhile, Killian's furious phone call came through. Hesitantly, I approached the door of the CEO's office, unable to muster the courage to knock for quite some time. Madam, why aren't you going in? The assistant's booming voice was downright startling. Killian abruptly flung the door open and carried me inside in front of everyone. As the door closed, Killian even gave my butt a couple of pats. Those pats were definitely seen by the staff outside. My cheeks flushed crimson as I couldn't help but scold, Killian, you pervert. He pressed his lips together, then sealed mine. Before, I only dared to think about it in my head. Now that I can act it all out on you, I'm nothing but excited. Serafina, say you love me. All my words were swallowed by him. Those murmurs of love you would frequently resurface in the days to come. When he was unhappy, a simple I love you could instantly light up his face. When he hit a roadblock, a whispered I miss you would clear the fog in his mind. I never knew expressing emotions and affection could bring such profound comfort. But Killian, thank you, for loving me this deeply. From Killian's perspective, after my death, my soul floated in midair. I saw Serafina crying her heart out because of the assistant's words. I couldn't help but blame the assistant. Why make Serafina so sad? I'd thought that my death might bring Serafina some relief, but it seems to have only made things worse. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself at a loss facing Serafina. I had no idea what to do to make her happy. Perhaps letting her go would be the best for her. But then, she suddenly changed. Became so proactive, even, started caring for me, applying medicine for me, and taking the initiative to kiss me. Having been reborn, I should have remained steadfast. Yet, I couldn't refuse Serafina at all. Serafina, this time it was you who threw yourself into my arms. How could I possibly let go? Even if it meant dying once more, I'd be willing. Still, it's a relief. Everything is moving in a positive direction. The kindness I show her, she repays twofold. The love I give her, she loves me back twice as much. Serafina, I love you. Until death do us part.